We turn now to the controversial appointment and departure of the former Waikato DHB CEO, Nigel Murray. Dr Murray, who was being paid $560,000 per annum and who spent half of last year travelling, resigned in early October following concerns over his spending. DHB sources have told Checkpoint that questions were being raised about Dr Murray's behaviour long before he resigned. But a Hamilton-based Labour MP between 2005 and 2017 told us she warned the DHB that Dr Murray was a risk before he was even hired. Last night, DHB Chair Bob Simcock told us he couldn't have acted against his CEO because he simply didn't know what he was doing. But former List MP Sue Moroney, who was based in Hamilton, of course, said she warned Bob Simcock about Nigel Murray, and she wasn't alone.
Well, I met with Bob Simcock early in June 2014 because there had been media speculation that Nigel Murray was the front runner for the DHB's CEO role. And I just decided as a community leader that I had some real misgivings about that, and so it was important for me to share that with the chair of the DHB. So I met privately with Bob Simcock and shared my views with him. I was concerned because I'd been working in the health sector when Nigel Murray was employed as the CEO of the Southland DHB, and I really recall the acrimonious negotiations that he led over that period of time. And I also had recalled that he'd had quite a sudden departure from the Southland DHB that involved some concerns around the fact that the DHB thought he was overseas doing some work on their behalf, and it transpired that he was over there having a job interview for his next career prospects. So I shared those issues with Bob Simcock.
And he was chairman of the board at that stage, wasn't he? He was well and truly chairman of the board by then. What did he say back to you?
Well, he agreed that, because I was saying to him, look, Bob, I think this is an issue around your credibility because this is such a controversial appointment. And he agreed that his credibility was at stake, and he assured me that he'd be keeping a close eye on Nigel Murray. He said to me that he was convinced that Nigel Murray was the best person for the job, that he had double-checked his referees, and that the referees that Nigel Murray had provided for him were glowing in their praise of him, and that he was going to proceed with the appointment. So, at that point we had to agree to disagree, and I felt that I had an assurance from Bob Simcock that he understood how controversial this appointment was and that he would be keeping a very close eye on Dr Murray.
Do you remember him saying that? Do you remember the chairman of the board, Bob Simcock, telling you he would keep a very close eye on Nigel Murray?
Yes, he gave me that assurance in that meeting.
OK, can we play you a grab of Karen Brown, who is our health correspondent, talking to Bob Simcock yesterday about how Bob Simcock seems not to have been keeping as close an eye on Mr Murray as he promised you he would keep. Could you listen to this?
Shouldn't you have been more closely in touch with him? That was your primary responsibility and no one else, wasn't it?
Well, actually, it's his primary responsibility. But certainly I was aware of what I was authorising. It's very difficult for me as a chair to be aware of things that are not put in front of me. Certainly he didn't comply with policies and processes that we would expect him to comply with.
And you were the one responsible?
No, he's the one responsible.
But you should have picked it up as the chair of the DHB.
Well, you're saying I should pick it up. You need to explain to me how I would do that. In fact, if there are no documents that I see that indicate the problem.
Is that consistent, what Bob Simcock was saying to Karen Brown there, with the assurances he gave you about the eye he would keep on Nigel Murray?
That bears no resemblance to the discussion that I had with Chair Simcock at that time, where I was impressing upon him his responsibility in making that appointment. And he was agreeing that it was a controversial appointment and that his credibility was at stake over how that all worked out. And that's the reason why he said to me that it was in his interests, in Bob Simcock's interests, to be keeping a very close eye on Nigel Murray.
So what are we to make of all of this? Nigel Murray going in the circumstances in which he went, the $150,000 spent on the investigation into his behaviour, the money that was just inappropriately spent, and money is a scarce resource in every DHB. And Mr Simcock's suggestion now that there is simply no way he could have known. What are we to make of all of this?
Well, it was Bob Simcock's job to know about what was going on. It's really frustrating for me to learn subsequently that within months of Bob Simcock and I having that conversation, that Nigel Murray was already flouting the policies and procedures of the DHB by claiming more in transfer accommodation costs than what he was entitled to do. I was also raising in Health Select Committee hearings of the financial review performance of the DHB. I was raising ongoing issues with regard to Nigel Murray's salary increases that had...
You were raising this in Select Committee?
Yes. So certainly in the review of the 2015-16 financial review of the DHB, I did quite a range of questions about quite a substantial increase in Nigel Murray's salary in his second year of employment with the DHB. And I think that some of those things need to be revisited as well, because one of the reasons given for that more than $100,000 increase in Nigel Murray's salary was his cashing up of annual leave to the tune of $21,000. Now, I think we're in a situation where Bob Simcock says he doesn't know how often Nigel Murray was out of the country. I don't think that he knows how much annual leave he was actually taking, and was he entitled to have that $21,000 worth of annual leave cashed up.
We have looked back on that Health Committee, and that matter was indeed discussed. $21,000 was indeed paid out in untaken annual leave. We're going to try and find out more about that, because on the face of it, we're staggered that Dr Murray could have had any annual leave available to him. You will have heard Sue Moroney say that she received assurances from Bob Simcock that Dr Murray had provided really strong referees. We wanted to know what those referees were, who they were and what they were saying. So we contacted the DHB and asked for them. We were declined that information on the grounds that the public interest is outweighed by the need to withhold information that is subject to an obligation of confidence. We are simply not persuaded by that refusal, and we will be appealing it immediately to the Ombudsman. This is in the public interest, we think.